What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Baseball Picks and Bets presented by Prize Picks right here on the Mayo Media Network. I'm your host, Chris Meaney. Thanks, as always, for taking the time to hang out. Yesterday, we did the NL win total previews for all the teams. We gave some Cy Young and MVP predictions. Today, we will be taking a look at the American League, some Cy Young predictions as well as MVPs. And I'm pleased to bring in the co-host of this segment today, and you can catch him on the Mayo Media Network throughout the season giving fantastic baseball advice. He is the host of Cork Stats over at FTN. It's an absolutely free podcast. There is no excuse not to sign up for this podcast. Rate, review, check it out at MLB Moving Average. It is John Laghezza, aka Big John. What's happening, my man?
What's up, Chris? Man, I can never get through these intros without blushing. You know, it's thank you so much, man.
Dude, you're killing it. Are you kidding me? The draft kit is absolutely lit over at FTN Fantasy. The podcast is phenomenal. The information, just sitting back and listening, I leave your podcast, I feel a lot smarter.
Yeah, well, right, they always kind of tell you to do it, right? Do it like you want it done and do it like no one else is doing it. And I'm kind of like dancing. I'm dancing like no one's watching, baby.
And you're having a blast. And that's what's really cool too. You can really tell that you're really in your element.
Hey, listen, the same to be said for you. In fact, that last episode, if anyone didn't catch it, I usually don't push my own stuff because you're the same way. We both do a lot of content. After we finished, I was like, that was so good. I kind of went back and watched it. I watched it myself, and I don't go back and watch a lot. Chris, I've been having so much fun working with you. I can't wait to get to the other side. I was like flattered to be brought back because I love this, man. I'm just having a blast, man.
Yeah, I thought we would go about 45 minutes, but it was just so good. And the detail that you had, it's like, all right, we'll do another show tomorrow, which is today. We're on a Tuesday here recording in the afternoon. We're just a couple days away from opening day. So I could tell the smile looks like you slept with a clothes hanger in your mouth. I'm smiling. Matty Best is
so
behind
happy, man.
I really am smiling and picking up hopefully a win total or two that he likes along the way. So we will take a look at the American League. And yeah, you're going to be doing some stuff here at the Mayo Media Network, which is super exciting. So anybody just checking out this show for the first time, please rate, review, subscribe. You never know when Mayo's just going to hand out bucks. This is what he does. He just hands out bucks. He takes care of you guys out there. And like he says, smash the like button. And if you have a team that, you wanted us to talk about a little bit more, you had a question, maybe your favorite bet, don't be afraid to leave it in the comment section here. And, you can listen to all platforms, but we'll circle back before opening day on the YouTube page here. So let's get after it. Let's start in the American League East, what I think is the most competitive division in the AL. Correct me if I'm wrong, but let's also start with your pinstripes, buddy. 95.5. Looking at DraftKings Sportsbook. We got the Red Sox here, 80.5, Blue Jays, 86.5, the Rays, 85.5, and I know that you're a sucker for that team. We'll get to them in a little bit. And then Baltimore, 64.5. So the Yanks, 112, over, under. What do we got here from the Yankees? Much of the same on offense so far. A healthy Giancarlo Stanton, who has been smashing the cover off the baseball. I saw one from Judge the other day, too. My goodness, it was crazy. Yeah. But the pitching staff is a little different, right? Jamison Taillon is here. Corey Kluber is here. No Masahiro Tanaka anymore to talk about. What do you make of the offseason moves from the pitching staff? And is 95.5 slightly high?
Well, all right. There's a few things here. Wow. First of all, I'm actually surprised at 95.5. I thought they'd be closer to where the Dodgers are. Remember, the Dodgers do have the Padres, and we spoke about that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the AL East is the most competitive. They're all really competitive. I mean, I'd kind of compare it to maybe the same as the NL West. You have two legitimate teams. I mean, I love the Rays. We're going to get to that. I love them last year. I think they're being criminally undervalued, probably at the cost of the Yankees, which is a public narrative thing. But to that, I'm surprised the public hasn't pushed this up a bit. So I'm actually a little bit surprised that I might be over on the Yankees.
Oh,
I am not. And this is funny because if anybody saw you and I talk about the Yankees on your team previews,
you were just lying all over me.
Listen, I was down.
Yankees preview.
I was very down on the Yankees because of the build, because of the way they went about building the rotation. I'm not backing off that from a process base. I'm not. I don't think that was the right move. But I also can't predict injuries. I never claimed to do that.
Sure.
Right now, the guys they brought in, Chris, I mean, maybe they heard it, and maybe they're like, I'm going to smush it in this guy's face because they look super sharp. So though I still am not sold that 3/5 of the Yankees rotation is going to make it beyond the All-Star break, right now they look really sharp. Referring to Tyon and Kluber, guys, I was worried. We didn't know what we were going to get. We haven't seen anything. We didn't even have a small set in 2020 to go off of. The small set of 2020 looked like a large set compared to what we had from these guys. Multiple injuries, a long time since we've seen competitive ball, and they both look extremely sharp. Velocities are good. The strikeouts are there. They both look really good. So the Yankees look kind of deep in pitching. Plus, Davey Garcia is kind of in the wings. He also looks sharp. And the one guy I was really high on outside of Cole, Domingo Germán, looks excellent, like as good as he has ever looked. So even though I'm into the Yankees, I'm into the April and May Yankees. You mentioned that offense. Also, they're going to have trouble staying on the field, I think. Too many question marks for me if we're talking about futures. That's where I was going. That was the long way of, even though I like them and I see the potential, you still have to pay a premium and you still need a lot of games out of this team. And they're a bit fragile as a unit. It's unfortunate, but the history is there. So it's funny. It's kind of a mixture. The only reason I could be over after giving that analysis, Chris, is just because I'm surprised at the number. I think they beat up on Boston, and I think they beat up on Baltimore because of the depth of the rotations. If the Yanks are going to roll out 5 legitimate starters, Boston and Baltimore combined don't have 5. I don't even know if they have 3, and I don't like to insult them. If they were rolling out legitimate guys, I'd be the first one. I really would be the first one to say that they're both in desperate need. The Red Sox brought in Garrett Richards, and he looks awful. They were hoping he was going to be one of the books on Richard is that usually when he's on the bump, he's pretty good. And that hasn't been the case right now. Nick Pivetta is a roulette wheel at the very best. So the Red Sox are in trouble. There's a chance the Yankees are heavy favorites every single day. They have the bullpen. They have the offense right now. You mentioned the Yankee EV numbers are just, dude, they are hitting the ball harder as a unit than I can remember anybody. Again, I know I'm wearing the stuff, but that's not where this is coming from. It comes from Savant. The numbers are there.
I was going to say, because when we did the Mean Streets Yankees preview, not that you were sour on them, but there was a lot of questions that you had heading into the season. And some of those, obviously, that you alluded to have been answered with the pitching staff. I mean, there's no question this team can mash. And, the Red Sox are going to score runs too. But when they go up against the Red Sox, the difference is going to be the pitching and the bullpen that the Yankees have to offer. So I agree with you 100%. I still think this is slightly high, but it is – and it's wrong of me to say this, but it is the question that I have is the health, right? And of course, you can't look at this team and not have some concerns with some of their guys like Judge and Hicks and Stanton. Gleyber Torres has been fine. He's a beauty.
We actually made a point on the last episode that I think it plays again today, and you're talking about it kind of being downrange. But even though we have our concerns downrange because of health, the Yankees are adding. So that's part of the calculus as well, right?
Absolutely.
We want to be careful putting future bets on bad teams because they may be subtracting. If the Yankees lose a starter, I mean, Garcia is pretty good. And if they lose a second starter, they probably fill it with somebody of at least the veteran ilk. Who knows? Even if it's Chris Archer, I'm just throwing out a random name. It's going to be somebody. So I think that might validate the 96 because there's going to be some bad teams mixed in there. And again, with the depth of the rotation, the way they hit, I mean, and now and the bullpen, I mean, you could see them running through the Central, let's say. There's, a road trip through, even if it took them through Minnesota for a few games, the back end of the Minnesota rotation is not great. And it's not as good as the middle of the, Yankees. And there's a chance where it lines up where they're rattling off 8 out of 10, 9 out of 13. And that's how you get to that 96, I think.
Well, yeah, there's some bad teams in the Central. There's a couple bad teams in the West. So, I mean, they could roll through a lot of those teams. Before we move on from the Yankees, Judge 20-1 to lead the league in homers and Stanton 20-1 to lead the league in homers. Would you take a flyer on either of those guys?
I think the answer is both. I think if you want to put your money, again, on two guys that have a problem with staying on the field, it's pretty good odds. I would determine a value X, and I would split that and let it ride on the two of them. it feels almost like a better than a half chance because there's a chance they both make the
Right.
run. Everybody, and when Stanton's done in 2 weeks, nobody knows that. He has a good enough a chance of playing 150 games almost as anybody, believe it or not. That's just reality. Nobody has figured out how to predict these things. So I wouldn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. They both play together and they are kind of correlated in a way, right? If one were to be subtracted,
yes.
the other benefits in the lineup, even without protection. I don't think you have to worry about protection of the Yankees lineup, but you also get a bit more of that star that we alluded to last time about not having to share those votes. So that also might be something to think about if we're talking MVP,
All right, the Tampa Bay Rays, 85.5. One of the surprises last season. You were all over this over at ftnbets.com. Good on you, man. 40-20. They went to the World Series, almost got it done. They lose Blake Snell in that rotation. Chris Archer, who you just brought up, is back with the Rays. Rich Hill and Michael Wacha to round out the rotation. Already dealing with some injuries. Nick Anderson is a guy that I really liked a couple years ago. I liked him coming in here too, but they still have a pretty solid bullpen. Pete Fairbanks, I think, is an absolute stud. Yeah. And just this team just finds a way, man. They bring in Margot. They've been platooning guys left and right. I feel like every trade they'd made over the past few years, they've found a way to win. It's almost like for anybody who's a hockey fan watching this show, like when Steve Yzerman calls you to make a trade, you just hang up, right? It's just like you're not going to win that trade with him. And I just feel like the Rays have found a way to get these pieces from teams, and they've found a way to make it work. So 85.5. You like them again this year?
Oh, yeah, big over for me, easily. Again, and it's going to go to pitching. They're going to do it a little differently than the Yankees because I actually think they're better as far as being deeper. Apples to apples, fully healthy, the Yankees probably get the nod for me because of the back end. However, when we calculate the full year and the entirety of the bullpen, the middle guys, I think the Rays front to back are really, really good. And not to take much away from the Yankees, they're just not. I don't think they're as good as the Rays. And it kind of goes to what you were alluding to, Chris. And it's that developmental system going on down there is awesome. Whatever, if they're sniffing around your guys, you need to take a second look and see what you might be missing. That's the truth. Yeah. Because if they're sniffing around your guys, it's not because they're going to be bad in a few years. They've turned around too many people. That's just what it is. That's just the facts. And I've been using these organizations as the determination for my coin flips in fantasy, let's say, right? Give me the organization. Give me the Indians. Give me the Rays. If I'm not sure, give me the system. Give me the tech. Give me the brains behind the arms. And I think that's why the Rays succeed. They're one of the most, analytically driven in the league. They fully embrace it, even with its mistakes. They just try and improve. And they find themselves in the World Series, and they find themselves underdogs again. Now, let me ask you, do you think they care that they're the underdog? And let me ask you one more. Are they 11 games worse than the Yankees?
I don't think they're 11 games worse. No.
If you need to be really picky and you don't like to do these, these kind of builds that I do where I like to build it where if anything hits, the whole venture is profitable, opposed to trying to go for the big hit. I mean, listen, that's me. But if you have a big hit bet, it's not the Yankees. It should be the Rays, right? If you're only taking one shot at this bad boy, there's a lot more value in the Rays for me than there is for the Yankees.
Well, I just feel like this is a team that Vegas has disrespected for a while now. I go back in 2018, they had 90 wins. They surpassed their win total. In 2019, they had 96 wins. They cruised past their win total. Last year, nobody was projecting them to have 40 wins. They were projecting the Yankees to lead this division and have 40 wins. So again, they have, over the past couple of years, they have sailed past their win total, and I think that they're a 90-win team again. Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite bets.
Yeah.
And out of all of the teams, I know we talked about Miami, and I was on the fence with Miami. You really sold me with the Marlins. But Tampa is right there as another team that I think is just getting slightly disrespected. I don't know if a lot of people are believing or buying into what they did last season, but I think everybody should. As we move on, we got the Toronto Blue Jays here, who had a nice offseason. 86.5 is their win total, so even higher than the Rays. I took a shot, a World Series flyer on them at 30-1 when they were starting making the moves. As of today, using our free FTN prop shop, you can get 22-1 DK. I don't actually think that they are World Series contenders, but they're a team that I definitely think is on the rise. I think they can make more moves, and if they get into the postseason, who knows? I think they definitely need another arm, but bringing Steven Matz, who's not all that exciting. Kirby Yates, unfortunately for him, you're not going to see him this season. George Springer, Marcus Semien atop the order to go along with some of these stud young bats, and Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Teoscar Hernandez, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. had great seasons last year, and then Kevin Biggio as well as another guy. So this is going to be an offense that scores some runs.
Yeah.
What do you think about their total? And is it the pitching that gives you maybe potential pause from betting the over here?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the problem is all three of the teams that are not the Yankees and the Rays kind of have a similar model in, man, they're going to go with bludgeoning offense and like, yikes, bubblegum and duct tape rotation into bullpens. The Blue Jays are going to look like they're doing a TTO thing, a time through order thing, where they brought in Chatwood, and now Thornton is back and Barucki is back, and both of those guys are TTO kind of one. You can get one time through the order; they might be really good. Guys like them they've kind of soured having tried to been stretched out. The Barucki experiment as a full length starter didn't work, but he's been effective in short stints. If you look into him, the same with Thornton. He's got a couple of nasty pitches. There's some upside there. Again, they may not be able to go through the order a second time, but if you have enough of them, which it looks, I mean, Toronto has a few of these guys now. It could get you the innings. I think they need one more legit starter, though. How many innings do you have to get from Tanner Roark this year? Roster Resource has Anthony Kay penciled in for the 5. I understand you don't need the 5 just yet.
Right.
But I think you'd have to do a little better than that. Like, Stripling went from being what I was seeing as like a time through order guy. Maybe he was going to be an opener or a follower or something, to now he's like the number 2, and they need him to be a legit starter.
Can he get back to form with the Dodgers? I know he was in and out of the rotation, but man, when he pitched for the Dodgers, he's really good. Can he get back to that form, do you think?
He's certainly impactful. I mean, I think the question is not if he's going to be impactful. He's always been impactful on a per inning basis. I'm throwing 2020. I really don't care, right? The low single digit walk rates and the high 20% K rates and all that stuff. He's always been really good. Not a double digit barrel guy. Right. My worry is the stretching out, the reliance that you needed. There was a point during this offseason where it looked like he was maybe going to be the 6th man, the long man, or maybe even the 5th man, which would be great. I think Stripling's a very good 5th man. He's not a number 2 as constituted because the expectations are even beyond what he's ever given. So that's almost unfair to him because he's been very good. So now let's say he pitches the best he's pitched. It's still going to fall short because you plugged him into a spot that he doesn't really fit. And that's my opinion. So I like Stripling, but I think where he's going to go, he's going to be going up against all the other number 2s, and he's going to be outmatched in those, I think.
So what do you think about this total?
It's right on the money, I think. It's right on the money. Where I was getting at first, of course, I ramble in tangent, but it's that Toronto, Boston, and Baltimore, I think, are going to have something we spoke about before off air. There's going to be a lot of these like late bullpen games, I think. And those are very difficult to predict, even as a professional handicapper. I struggle with those. Who does not? So I don't know. I don't know.
It's a stay away.
Yeah, they're in a glob that I think that they fall way behind the Yankees and the Rays, that the Yankees and the Rays kind of feed on them. Meaning, let's say 12 wins against the interdivision games out of 19. The Boston, Baltimore, Toronto ones feel like those are 10-9s because I don't know. I try to look at the division in those 19-game sets, and those feel very split to me. Baltimore and Boston, because it could just, once it's 6-5 in the 5th inning, all bets are off. All bets are off. It's whoever is getting outs, and it just gets crazy. So it's hard to predict that on a granular level. Forget from April into September. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's a tough number because I definitely think that they're on the rise and I like some of their additions, but they're off to, like Springer is already hurt. Yates is already hurt.
Dude, that's a big piece. I was a very big George Springer fan, one of the articles you mentioned on the draft kit was an outfield article where I kind of put everyone's favorite players underneath the microscope. And I didn't know this. I had never done it. Man, George Springer holds up to all scrutiny. His player profile holds up to
Oh
all
yeah.
scrutiny. He's an A1. He's an A1. He's a legitimate A1. He could be going a lot early in fantasy drafts, and to have him leading off is huge. I'm not buying the news on the oblique right now. They're saying opening day, grade 2
No.
strains. Opening day is like 2 days away.
Yeah, that's typically like a 4 to 6 week thing.
And unfortunately, and again, I wish him all the best. He's an exciting player. And even as a Yankee fan, I like when the Blue Jays are good. I like when everyone's healthy. Like, I just enjoy the game better that way.
Sure.
Obliques are stay around injuries. Those are reoccurring injuries we've seen in recent years alone. David Dahl and Aaron Judge just get totally shelved off of fantastic years, guys that were just humming. Right? David Dahl was like a 3-10, 20-20 guy at a certain time, and then that injury totally chopped him down. Judge looks like he's back, but it takes time, and you miss games along the way. So I'm worried. I'm just worried about Springer because he could get
re-injured. I'm worried about him too, and he's had a couple injuries, a little bit older. Now he's going to play in that ballpark. It's a little tough, but I'm on the fence here with the Jays. Like, again, I think they're on the rise, but they do feel still like maybe a 500 ball team. But man, I think they're definitely headed in the right direction. There's no question. I would like to see them add one more arm, and who knows? Maybe that's something that they'll do throughout the season if they get
they're
off to a hot
buyers.
start.
Wouldn't you consider?
Yeah, they're buyers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So you have to
Absolutely.
consider that, right?
Yes, for sure. The Red Sox, maybe sellers again. They have been over the past couple of years. 80.5 is the win total here, minus 106 for the over, minus 118 for the unders. So the past couple of years, we all know Mookie Betts gone, Benintendi gone this offseason. Kike Hernandez acquired through free agency, reportedly going to lead off for this Red Sox squad. Hunter Renfroe, Franchi Cordero, and the pitching staff is, as you alluded to earlier, it's not good. It's led by Nate Eovaldi, and it's got Pivetta in the 2 spot right now. Garrett Richards, my guy, you're breaking my heart. I know. I root for this guy, but yeah, he hasn't been able to put it together over the past couple of years. Health has been a big thing with him. And Erod, who's a guy that a lot of people like in the fantasy community, is some upside there, who has shown flashes, is dealing with a dead arm to start the season. So not a great start for the rotation, right? They haven't really seen a lot in spring training, but they are going to score some runs. This is a team that's going to score some runs. Everybody across the AL East, I think, going to score a lot of runs, but 80.5 seems high. And what you talked about earlier, I think plays here with the Red Sox. If they get off to a slow start and they're 10 games below 500 by, I don't know, June, say mid-June, are they just going to shut down Chris Sale? Who knows? Chris Sale's not certain to get back inside this rotation. He hasn't even started throwing yet. Don't know if they're just going to bring him back mid-season. And do they start shipping off other guys? So a lot of question marks with this Red Sox team. And I'm not in on the 80.5. I think I would lean with the under, even though this, like I said, I think they're going to score a lot of runs, John.
Yeah, you know what? This I'm a little disappointed in the public. I'm surprised they haven't pushed up the Red Sox because
A little bit higher.
I think this 80.5 is inflated. I'm surprised it isn't more inflated. I generally I've been shorting the Red Sox pretty much every year. Since they've been good. They're not good right now, and it's not because I like the Yankees. Again, I prefer baseball when the Red Sox are good. 03-04 was my favorite baseball time maybe ever, and obviously 04 was just downright depressing for us. Like as bad as it could get. And it's still in a way you enjoy it because it makes you feel something. It's awesome. So this Red Sox team, the direction they took is awful. Maybe Theo is a lot better than we should have been giving him credit for, because that was a winning team, always on a positive trajectory. And this team appears to be spiraling. And you know what? There are ways to kind of soft land rebuild on a good team, right? Big name franchises like Yankees, Red Sox are not supposed to pull the plug and flush. That's not normally how they do it. It's normally a soft land. Yikes. Mookie just goes. That hurts, man. He's that's a hometown loved guy. And you're just,
I can't believe it. I still can't believe that
he's so
should have
good.
been the guy to go.
Just totally. That was problematic. I'm not a fan. I'm a baseball fan, and that was problematic. So as a Red Sox fan, I'd probably be chucking up. I don't want. This is gross.
It's rough.
That's gross. It's gross. It's gross. But they didn't supplement it with anything now. And I think you have to do that when you have those type of fans. And I have to point out Boston fans, Yankee fans are the same way. We do it because we expect more, because we want more. You can't really do that. You can't just, say here's Alex Verdugo. It's not the same. And I like him. He's a nice player. It's not that. And the Red Sox have some very interesting young guys as I
Oh, they
dive
do.
deeper into prospect
They could
stuff.
turn it around pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm a big, I guess I'm a big Dalbec guy. Like, if I have any money anywhere up there in Massachusetts area, it's on my boy, the house is Dalbec. In fact, I've already nabbed a bit of closing line value, people, and I believe there is more to be had. He was a 20-1 favorite to win Rookie of the Year. It's already down to 15-1. That will continue to close with Andrew Vaughn near 11. Write that down, okay? You heard that here first. I don't know if he's going to win, but get the money in now, because you're going to get sick value on it, and he's going to be a legitimate, candidate for it. I think when there are so many people, or at least like a half a dozen or so guys playing the entire year, I think that's where we want to focus. So, yeah, I don't want any money on the Boston pitching. I think the offense is going to spoil a lot of games for everyone in the division. So I am under with you, Chris, but I don't know if I want to bet it. What I was getting at initially, I wanted to mention was, shop this one around. Maybe we can find an 82.5 somewhere. You know what I mean? And remember, it is Boston. The popular teams can tend to have a higher variance because they bring in more money. So if you find a more localized book, you have a chance of catching. I think we might be able to catch an extra game there. I just have a feeling 80.5 is he's not the best line.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was looking at Bobby Dahlback, just home run prop 70-1. I know he's not going to lead majors, but we had Eric Cross.
I'm taking that.
Yeah, I would take that too, just because how long it is. I had Eric Cross on Mean Streets over at FTN, our YouTube page. It's a free show. You want to check it out. Doing a bunch of team previews. You just talked about it. Did the Yankees with you and did the Red Sox with him. He's a big Red Sox guy. And, he didn't have a lot of positive things to say about Boston besides a couple of, Devers and Xander, of course. But Bobby Dahlback is a guy that he's seen a handful of times live in the minors, and he's just talking about his swing. And I kept thinking about you and your underdog strategy and how much you like him in that format.
I do.
Yeah, and he just seems like a great late round fantasy target.
Yeah.
Somebody who could definitely, in his path, seems like 40 home runs is certainly within reach. I don't know if he's going to do it in his first full season in the bigs, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's hitting 35. I'll tell you that. He's absolutely tearing the cover off the ball throughout spring. The final team here in the AL East, the Baltimore Orioles, 64.5, minus 112 for the over, minus 112 for the under. This is a team that actually had more wins than the Boston Red Sox last season, 25-35, one more W than the Bo Sox. You mentioned Means. I like Means quite a bit. I think he's a stud. He's a great arm. After that, yikes. This is a low total, though. We talked yesterday about betting on teams 100. To win 100 games and betting on them to lose 100 games. Is this a stay away, or do you like it?
Yeah, it's a problem. I want to use a trading kind of adage with you, Chris. And I think a lot of times the overlap from Wall Street and baseball is the Venn diagram is like a perfect circle sometimes. And it's that the trend is your friend, meaning when a team is bad, we want to bet on them to be bad. And if a team is good, we want to bet on them to be good. So if it like the Yankees, we don't want to short the Yankees. If we don't like them, you fade it, but you go over with the Yankees if you like them. And it's the reverse for the Orioles. I'm not going to look to go over on a very bad team because the line is pulling me in, because we know that there's a trap door to 105 losses here. We know that. Is it going to happen? Who knows? Why? Because of those bullpen games between them, Toronto, and Boston we were talking about. No one knows how those are going to go. There's going to be quite literally 20 of those games up for grabs. And if one of the three teams is super lucky in those particular situations, all other things being equal, they may end up as a second wild card. The way it'll probably happen is they all kind of annihilate each other and beat each other down, and they all come really close to these lines. But it's very hard. I'm not going to go over on a Baltimore team that we know, if anyone does happen to excel, is going to be on the, the first bus out of there. So there goes that kind of downrange approach again, trying to, we're always trying to do the calculus long-term and near-term. There's another trading thing. You never want to just stare at the short-term chart. You want to kind of zoom out, look at the 5-minute, but look at the day, look at the month, look at the week, and get a general trend and try and stay within the trend. I found that's always been good to me, right? Let's go when the Yankees are down, bet on them long. when the Baltimore is playing good, that's when we short them. And if you want to put your money on Baltimore, Baltimore and John Means is an underdog in Boston on Thursday to Nate Eovaldi. So I can tell you where some of my F5 money will be if you want a little teaser, everybody, to the FTN Bets package that makes money for everybody. I mean, I can't believe it. The public just does this all the time, that's where the trap doors are going to be for us.
Yeah.
You got to be selective if you're going to bet on these teams, yeah.
A lot of my money last year was on the Chicago White Sox as we move over to the AL Central. And the White Sox here favored to win the division, 90.5 the win total, the over plus 100 minus 124. So last year, John, you're talking about first five. This was new to me, just team totals. And the White Sox were at 3.5. They started the season at 2.5 most times, like the Blue Jays, 2.5, 3.5. And every time this team went up against a southpaw, a lefty on the hill, I just hammered the over. They were among the leaders across the board in homers and average and WOBA and WRC plus and slugging, OPS, everything against lefties. This is a team that can absolutely mash lefties. So they bring in a veteran back again, Adam Eaton, who can give them a little bit of stability to hit some righties. Yeah. And then they bring in Lance Lynn, who I think he's got 3 200 innings seasons on his resume, is a guy who just eats up innings. Then Liam Hendricks, who had the second best ERA last season, I believe, or the second most saves and the best ERA since the start of 2019 among qualified closers at 1.66. And it's not even close. So a team filled with some offseason moves and some young promising players. Unfortunately, Eloy Jimenez is not one of those guys that's going to be playing this season, already done for the year. Another guy that it breaks my heart to hear it. I love this guy. But Luis Robert, absolute stud. You mentioned Andrew Vaughn. He's going to get more playing time now because of this team. This team's loaded, man, but is 92 high?
I can't go there, actually, because, again, they did bring in a lot of pieces, but I don't think they were as close as maybe some people thought. The back end of the rotation is still not very good. I want Cease to be to excel. I do. I want
we all do, but there's some questions.
I think it's in the cards eventually. I just don't know if it's right now for a contender in a tough division that has to kind of go to Minnesota. He's had problems that don't mesh well with home run hitting teams. Dylan Cease, I mean, and Rodon, we don't know what we're going to get again. And I know I just did that spiel for the Yankees. We just haven't seen quite what we've seen from Kluber and Taillon so far in the preseason. So the White Sox are one of those teams that really have a Jekyll and Hyde thing going on, right? I mentioned that. When Giolito is on the bump, you can get Giolito for minus 120. Dude, I don't even have to look at the board. If Giolito is anything less than minus 125, it's almost an auto smash, especially for an F5 bet where, for almost even money, he could pitch anybody to a tie game. So that's another little teaser. It's great.
We'll get into him a little bit more when we talk about Cy Young, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he's a total beast. He's like an A1 type of ace. But then I'm okay with the, not sexy kind of fantasy guys that are better for your real life team, like Dallas Keuchel and like Lance Lynn. Also, I had some problems with Keuchel. I actually did like Lance Lynn quite a bit. I think he's kind of a legit ace. Keuchel kind of pitched out of his shoes last year. I'm looking for it now. Yeah, I got it. So all of the surface stats look beautiful for him. I mean, you see the ERA at 1.99 last season, but with the Sierra up near 4.57, that's probably like a 60th percentile. It's not very good. And that trend kind of continued all the way through 2020. And now it's not stupid labor or overstressed 2020, Chris. It is because a lot of the push for Keuchel was because he was so good last year. But so my counter is only based on 2020 because the initial argument has been 2020. I think had Keuchel pitched to his expected and a lot of the tendency stuff here, the peripherals and whatnot, we wouldn't have gotten the results, and then we wouldn't have gotten the helium on him. I mean, it's bad. It's all the way across the board. He had a 217 batting average allowed. That's near the top of the board. He had a 282 expected. That's near the bottom of the board. I don't think anyone in the league had a greater discrepancy, and that really carries all the way across. 249 WOBA against, which is like, A1 ace, which is the results you saw, opposed to 310 X WOBA. That's just average. 259 WOBA on contact, which is off the charts. That's not him. 344X is what he normally is. So, and then you don't get the strikeouts. And I'm a little worried about that. So even towards the middle of this rotation, the White Sox fall off for me a bit. And I
Yeah.
worry about the team's discipline on offense. They were one of the worst in the league, and it really is not particularly close, Chris. I mean, I would say Luis Robert is a microcosm for this team. They were in the bottom 5 in total strikeouts.
Yeah.
They were bottom 3 in swinging strike rate, bottom 5 in CSW, bottom 10 in K rate, but also bottom 5 in walk rate,
Yeah.
bottom 5 in chase rate, bottom 10 in zone contact rate, bottom 8 in ground ball rate, bottom 10 in line drive rate. These are a very bad combination of
Yeah.
stats for a team that we're talking about killed because the surface stats were there, because they mash. All right. They put up a plus 400 WOBA on contact, which is beautiful. They hit 96 home runs, team average 261. WRC plus is a team of 113, near the top 10. But when you start to kind of pull the threads on what was going on beyond it, again, I talk about those trap doors. The White Sox, for me, have a trap door to being an average sinkhole. And when young players are average sinkholes, they start to press. And if they start to press, things start to go badly. And now when you combine that with a kind of poor back end rotation, I've been fading the White Sox. I don't know if I'm ready to short them and go under yet. I'm almost there. I want the public to push them up a little bit more. I want that extra game or two. So I'm going to shop that one around too. But that's been my heartbreaker for people that are really high on these White Sox. I am not yet. Just not yet. I think they're a World Series team in a year.
In a year, yeah. It feels like they're a year too early. It's like the Padres and the White Sox kind of came out of nowhere last year. Not out of nowhere, but this is a team that's on the rise. Been waiting for some of these prospects that they have inside their organizations and how they're going to fill out the other pieces via trades or free agency. And we're starting to see that with both of these teams. I totally agree. I think that I feel like the public is going to hammer this because you see the plus money.
Yep.
You see the young and exciting bats there. And maybe some of that last year had to do with beating up on brutal teams inside the division. And now you're going to play other teams this season. It's not going to be that
hurt
short.
Me. Losing Eloy hurt the White Sox bears.
100%.
Meaning the people who were bearish on the White Sox, like myself, we kind of took a hit because Eloy was probably worth a game on these lines, losing him for the season.
Yeah, and you're dead on with Keuchel. And again, maybe, a few more innings and a full season, we start to see the aggression. But 3.98 xFIP and a 1.99 ERA. It's a pretty significant gap, and a career low home run to fly ball rate, 4.7%, usually around the 10% mark, right, on average for his career, 14.7, and the strand rate, a career high 81.6%. Again, kind of telling, right?
He gets it done. And I like a guy like him in big spots. I like a guy like him to have to give you 6 innings. And I think adding Lynn really helps. I didn't mean to point to Keuchel as the weak spot. He's not the chink in the armor here. But what I was getting at is, if that's your certainty, because I think when we start to paint the picture of World Series teams, Chris, we have to think of them in playoff sets, right? That 1, 2, 3. The guy who can go game 1, 5, 7. I mean, that's really what the game boils down to from a strategic standpoint when we get to the very end. That's where those kind of, I don't mean boring vanilla guys, but that's where a Keuchel doesn't really match up with power, like a power 3. And I think that's where the White Sox would start if they made it to the end. I don't think they have the pitching to get them there.
No, I think maybe another 1 or 2 moves, or maybe a guy like Michael Kopech really does step up.
Right. Yeah,
something
full
to their rotation. Yeah. All right, the Cleveland Indians, 81.5 here, the win total, minus 112 for the over, minus 112 for the under. So the big move there, they lose Francisco Lindor. They bring in Eddie Rosario. The rotation has got some pieces there, led by Shane Bieber, of course, who had a phenomenal season last year. What do you think about this total?
No, I'm over, because I bet pitching. That's my thing. And when I lose betting pitching, I am fine with that. In particular, Cleveland has proven to me they are a pitching factory. Whatever's going on, whatever brand of spinach they're eating is the right one. Yeah. So that's where I want to put my money. And I feel like the total is low, and I feel like the contextual surroundings of the bet are in place. Pitching against the Royals is a good thing to have. It's going to help you win games. Pitching even against the Twinkies they're another one of those teams we'll get to. When you pull the threads on the offense, they have to mash, they have to bludgeon you, or they're not very good. A lot of the underlying stuff for the Twins not great. Cleveland's able to win a lot of low-scoring games. Now, I don't know, letting go of a guy like Lindor. We mentioned Betts is very similar, right? It feels very
Yeah.
similar to Betts. Man, you hate to, there isn't a column on Fangraphs for smiles, but those guys are awesome guys and they matter and they're glue guys and people love them, but fans love them, but they're fun to be around. They improve people, they're like the tide that kind of raises the ships. And I hate to see teams let those guys go because I can't imagine, a team getting better losing Frankie Lindor. Jimenez seems like it might be maybe it's a bit of a lateral move as far as on the field.
Yeah.
But pitching, they're going to need that pitching. Pitching is going to be paramount for these Indians. And the last place that I think there's some Indian money, there's some Cleveland money here, is the home run total. Because when you think about people that can do it, Franmil Reyes is a player that can lead the league in home runs, right? That in theory anybody could, but in reality they don't. There's only a handful of guys, and I think he's probably on it, and he's 50-1.
50-1, yeah.
I would say Franmil Reyes, who's going to be protected in the DH spot the entire year, they're going to want to baby him, right? No pitchers hitting. He could get a full complement of plate appearances. He's going to face some very bad pitching, and man, he could hit 45. Also, let's remember the deadened ball, or at least the potential for one. So I think we should be eliminating any of the gray area power guys that might be able to give you 32 in your projections, but not if you subtract the 15 feet off every fly ball. And not to say that's a perfect apples to apples translation, but we all know that there were guys in the last few years that have had a couple of home runs padded to the totals, let's say,
Sure.
for whatever reason. We want the pure power hitters, because if the ball is a shot put, he's one of the guys that could lift it out of the stadium regardless,
Yeah, I like this bullpen too.
Yeah,
he's got some pieces in it. Yeah, it is fairly strong. Where would you rank them in the AL off the top of your head, this bullpen?
Where's the bullpen? I think I might have to see a little more from Clase is easy to love on paper.
Yeah, he is.
But I think I want to see it. Let's see it. So I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, but I would, without being a total weasel and actually answering your question. How about if I said that there's a potential that they're like a top 6, a top 5, 6, but it has to be determined, because I'm hearing a lot about, like Nick Wittgren. All of a sudden, there's a ton of love for Nick Wittgren.
There is. Circles. Yeah, I think Clase, I think he's, I don't want to say legit. I think he's going to be a player this year. Like, he's not even really getting drafted in the center league. So
let me ask you your opinion for once. Mm-hmm. There's a name here that just popped up out of nowhere. Cleveland on roster resource went from 5 starters to 4, and one of the 4 starters wasn't on the list at all 2 weeks ago. So there's my right with that pitching factory theory going on. And it's Logan Allen, who I am going to admit I don't know much about. I know he already came over from San Diego, but I don't know much about Logan Allen. But now people are talking him up as if he's, it's almost as if he had some analytic team kind of unlock his treasures, and now he's a really excellent pitcher. And all of a sudden he's going to maximize his spin rate. He'll be maximizing the use of Magnus Force. Oh, and his control is going to get better. And it's the same story over and over and over again. So, I don't have to know anything about Logan Allen to know he's probably awesome, right? And I think Cleveland is going to greatly outperform that win total. And that, in this game, that means 86. I think they should be at 86 right now, or 85, because they have the pitching staff. They can limit you. They have a deep staff. Like I mentioned before, they could lose a guy and they still have a deep staff. Tristan McKenzie is out there. Quantrill is hanging out down there, and he'd be a starter for a bunch of squads. So you're getting deep, and you mentioned, the bullpen is deep. So I don't know. Cleveland just they're kind of stained when it comes to narratives.
Yeah, I don't know too much about Allen. I know he was shipped in the Bauer trade. All I know from him is that he's got extremely high walk rates. That's
like I said, out of nowhere, now people love him. I
see the buzz. I hear the buzz with Allen as another guy. He's a cheap guy, free guy. Maybe we're talking about him in DFS. Maybe we're talking about him as a waiver wire pickup. It's certainly possible, but a guy that really hasn't had a lot of strikeouts over the past couple of years, and has bounced around a bit, and the command has been spotty, to say the least. We'll move on from Cleveland. But yeah, I think I'm with you with the total. They do have some guys in that lineup, like you mentioned, Reyes, but heck, man, if Josh Naylor can give them
Yeah,
something
he's a
like some
player too.
power, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, Eddie Rosario is a nice little bat in there too, and Cesar Hernandez can get on base and set the
Right.
table for some
They're
of these
they're just
guys.
doing it kind of they're doing it kind of ugly, and
Yeah,
people
they're
don't.
patching
Yeah,
things
people
together.
don't like that. But if Jimenez is plays to potential, and Rosario you can almost sit and watch to, and Framil Reyes is just on the field slugging. Jose Ramirez is a first-round fantasy pick for a reason. The offense is not terrible. Well, they've been written off as terrible already. That chapter appears to already be written by the public, right? They're no good. But that might not be the case because we've kind of just laid out where they could have a strong 1 through 4. They could be good.
All right, well, let's save the Twins. We get the Tigers here at 68.5. I don't know if there's much to be said about them. They're obviously rebuilding and going through a transition. And then the Kansas City Royals at 73.5. Now, this Royals team is kind of intriguing to me, right? They bring in Benintendi, who I don't think is completely done. I mean, I don't know if we'll get back to a couple years ago, Benintendi, but I don't think he's I don't know, was he a $110 hitter or something silly like that last season? I don't even know if it was that low, but it was brutal. We talked about the Red Sox. That entire outfield from when they won the World Series, and Jackie Bradley Jr., Benintendi, and Betts all gone. But Whit Merrifield, I mean, he's a solid hitter atop the order. You bring in Carlos Santana, who's known to get on base, and a nice switch hitter there. Salvador Perez has been in and out of the lineup over the past couple of years. Jorge Soler, I think he was second in all of baseball in 2019 in home runs against righties. Had a nice season there. The rotation, okay, Brad Keller and Mike Minor, who had shown spurts last year, and actually more so 2 years ago with Texas, not so much last year. But I think this Royals team will be competitive. I'm not ready to say that they're going to get to 74, 75 wins, but I think I don't know if they're one of the most improved teams, but I think they're improved, John.
Wait, I was looking at it. I didn't see the total line. I just had it up now. I didn't see it.
73.5.
Okay, 73.5. I had DK up. It was blank. Okay, 73.5. Man, they're like, this is the gray area, right? I said we don't want to buck the trend. I think Kansas City stock is actually on the rise because I like Brad Keller and
I like Keller too.
I like Brady Singer a lot. And I've always liked the offense. I don't think the offense has been the problem. The bullpen's been the problem. And now there's a couple interesting arms out there as well. This might be an over for me, weird as it sounds, but just because the bar is set so low.
Right.
They're going to eat on Detroit a little bit.
Yeah.
And we know Kansas City is going to steal some wins from the back end of the Twins rotation. There's be some of those bullpen games we were talking about in that division also, just part of the game nowadays. You and I were talking about that and avoiding the variance in bullpens when we bet if we can sometimes. Man, it feels low because I know if we get into the high 70s, I'm out. So I want to be clear with my intentions for the Royals, but I think they finish closer to like 78, 79. Maybe 77 to 79. So even give me 78. So the fact we're 5 games clear of that, I could see putting that in the betting plan for sure.
Yeah, it's not one of my favorite picks, but I do think it's a little low. I think this team is a bit better than what Vegas is projecting 73. I think they can get to maybe 75 because, like you said, I think that they're gonna compete. They're gonna steal some games from the Twins. They're gonna steal with Cleveland. I obviously like the pitching a little bit more in Cleveland, but there's going to be some games where they're going to be able to compete with them offensively, I believe. What do you make of this Twins team now? You talked about some of the underlying numbers there. 88.5 is the win total here. This is a team that has also, sailed past projections over the past couple of years. Even last year when people were in on Cleveland, Minnesota rather, they still found a way to win the division, 36 wins, 24 losses into the postseason, dominant at home, 24-7. What do you think of this total, 88.5?
This is a little too sharp for me to get after. I was hoping it was going to be a little bit lower so I could go over.
Minus 130 on the over.
Because I do. Yeah, I think that's another part of the issue is it's juiced up. Yeah. And I don't love it. I wish it was like a game or two lower. Because there's love for the White Sox baked into this. And I wonder if Eloy didn't hurt this one also, that maybe this one would be a little bit lower if he didn't get hurt. You know, that kind of like butterfly effect going on.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it feels a little too close for me. That I'd probably fade. I'd probably fade the over under. I'm not totally sold on the back of the rotation.
No, me
I've heard
neither.
quite a bit of love for it. I've always been kind of the Fu Manchu, Randy Dobnak guy too. But Pineda is effective while on the field. I don't know what the expectations are for him. J.A. Happ, kind of the same thing. We've also seen two distinct versions of J.A. Happ. He can be very good. And then there are just other seasons where he's not. The control is not there. The release points are off. I dove into him a little bit to see. And when he's good, it appears it's legit. But the wheels have just fallen off and kind of come back on a few times. Plus, he's in his mid-30s. So
Exactly.
they're relying on it a bit. And then Shoemaker also, that feels like the Yankees a bit in when everyone's healthy, you could get effective innings.
Yeah.
But are we really asking all three of these guys to make it to September? That
No.
feels lofty.
Yeah, I think we've seen the best of Happ, and Shoemaker is a guy I know very well from following the Angels for a long time, and then his time with the Blue Jays, seen him live a few times. And yeah, when he's on and he's healthy, he can be a productive pitcher, but it's been health, right? I mean, Fangraphs has him for 104 innings, and honestly, I'd be shocked.
And now Dobnak
Not even a slight on
probably take one spot. Right, but I think they need more than that. And I actually like the back of the bullpen. I think Duffy, Rogers, and Colomay is pretty strong. You know, you're going to get critical outs there. But I'm worried about the back of this, the back of the rotation. To what I mentioned before, Chris, about the offense. That the team offense really not holding up the scrutiny. They mash, but they were one of the worst double hitting teams. And that's always something I look at that maybe doesn't get a lot of press. The Twins, I think what happened with them, they made a vocal kind of stand on elevation, right? So you could see this in all their players, and it translated into the team stats. If you look at the average launch angle and the ground ball and fly ball rates, the Twins, I think they led the league in both. Meaning, so, you know, there's a conscious effort there as a team going on to keep the ball off the ground and put it in the air. Yeah, 39-39, which is, as a team, that's that's phenomenal as a team. To put the ball in the air 39% of the time is phenomenal. Yeah. That's what the Twins did well, and they hit it hard. So when you combine those two things, you get home runs. But remember, we mentioned the dead ball, so they could stand to be hurt by the dead ball, and then their team discipline is very poor. You know, they're no better than – but they're the bottom third. They're bottom third across, except for in zone contact. They're actually in the top third, but across the board elsewhere, and it's not, you know, it's Ks and it's walks, you know, and it's CSW and it's swinging strike rate, and it's everything bad. So there's again that trap door for the Twins to not hit great, which people are expecting as the given, but there's a back end of the rotation that worries me. So I don't know if I'm in the 90s for this Twin team, because I think the back end is what gets eaten by the Royals.
Yeah, this is a sharp number. I would actually lean with the under. I think, you know, you got to be like 86, 87, which is just right there. I don't think I'll bet this. I definitely won't bet the over at minus 130. Like, there's no question I'm not getting involved with that. But yeah, you got to wonder, you know, Cruz is going to be 41 this season. He's still mashing. He's still great.
He's so good still, right? It's crazy.
I know he's still getting it done. You know, Donaldson's got some power there. Sano and Buxton are some of the guys I think that you're talking about with the swing.
But they're so flawed.
Swing and miss, but
I'm getting old, Chris. I'm going to be 39 in April, and I want batting average, and I want high contact rates. That's what I want. I'm getting old, man. I'm a batting average.
They'll get that from Andrelton Simmons. They'll get some nice defense from him, and he's one of the leaders in contact.
Right, it's not one extreme at a time,
but that's just one guy, right? And he's not going to do a whole lot.
You're trading one extreme for the other, where I had all the power and none of the contact. Now you're going to give me all the contact with a guy who can't hit it over the fence.
who can't hit it over the fence.
Right, he can't hit a homer for his life. So
you'd be lucky if he gets you 8 or 9 homers.
Yeah, I just want a little more balance, especially I'm getting nervous about the ball.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want to, I mean, it's flawed to be leaning into a dead ball with home run hitters. That's not a good strategy. It makes more sense to lean into a dead ball with ground ball pitchers, right? Intuitively, it makes more sense to steer into a strength rather than kind of buck. Again, they're steering with the trend. I'm really very simple at the end of the day. I just use a lot of words to do it.
One final note: Shoemaker, 170 innings over his last 4 years, so that
Yeah.
just goes to show what he can maybe. I know Fangraphs has him projected for about 100, but
I
don't
guess
know
I
if
mean
he'll
it's
get there.
fair. You can't go
Yeah,
under that, but
no, it's tough, but.
yeah.
All right, we'll move on. We got one more division here before we get to the final predictions. The AL West, the Houston Astros, Oakland Athletics, and Los Angeles Angels all projected in around from 83 to 87 wins, so pretty tight there. Seattle and Texas at 66.5. Let's start with the Astros, 87.5 here. Still the favorites. Man, heavy underdogs a lot of the time last year in the betting market, especially down the stretch and into the postseason. They were underdogs against the Twins. They swept them. They were underdogs against the A's. They took care of them pretty easily. And they almost made it again to the World Series, the Houston Astros. So they almost, I think it was 7 games against the Rays. And again, underdogs across the board. I don't know if that's just the whole cheating scandal, yada, yada. But this year they're coming in with a little bit of a different team. Of course, we know George Springer is not going to be there. Justin Verlander dealing with Tommy John surgery. I don't think he's going to pitch this season. Framber Valdez is dealing with a fractured finger right now. So the rotation looks like this. Greinke McCullers still there, just locked him up to an extension. Christian Javier is a prospect that we're going to see a little bit more of this season. Urquidy's a guy that I like. I think he's got some stuff. I think he's got some promise. But the bullpen too is a little hit or miss, but there's still got some guys here that are going to score, right? Altuve is still there and showed in the postseason, small sample size, that he still has something to offer. I thought he had a great postseason. I think he had more homers in the postseason than he had in the regular season. Same with Carlos Correa, very strong in the postseason as well. Bregman, Brantley, Jordan Alvarez, who hardly played last season. What do you think? Is this an 88 win team?
I don't know, but I have a couple of crossed indicators, and that's why I'm probably off this one because the public is pushing it up, so I would generally want to short this number, but the Astros are on the list of pitching factories.
The pitching.
None of these guys were even known. I mean, Urquidy had a touch of shine. They just keep bringing up guys, and they end up not just kind of coming up, but going over their shoes and then kind of sticking and then sticking. Javier. Urquidy, just name it. All these guys, it just kind of.
You bring in Jake Odorizzi, who maybe they can fix up a little bit as well.
It's been a next man up thing, and it really keeps working for them, right? Even Aaron Sanchez went there for a cup of coffee and was great for a month or whatever. It's just it just seems like you go there and you kind of get maximized. The spin rate goes through the roof, and balls are starting to dance for whatever reason, but it's happening. But there's question marks, and you nailed it. There are question marks. Greinke being one of them for me. Eventually, that ride is going to stop.
Seems like it's close to happen.
And again, McCullers, very difficult to rely on for a full complement of innings. I mean, it'd be hard for me to go above 150. And I try and be conservative, but I also try and give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Some people, he can't go over 60. I don't think that. I think he's healthy right now, and I always think there's a chance, but you have to be somewhat realistic, and you have to weigh in if they're going to manage him. Where are the innings going to come from? And that's what I mean. I want to short it, but generally when they plug the hole, it's with somebody really good. So we want to be careful, and they're going to have some weak comp also. I think I'm going to let the Astros go on this one.
Do you think they win the division, or is this maybe Oakland's time, or maybe the Angels here? Let's talk about the A's first. 86.5. For the A's. This is another team that, again, just a little bit of disrespect. I was in on the total last year. I think a lot of us over at FTN were in on the A's to be a playoff team. They were plus money to be a playoff team, and they smashed on their win total last season. How many wins do they have here? Just bring it up. 36-24, and they kind of stumbled down the stretch and into the postseason. What do you think about Oakland?
Man, it's fun. I hate being so non-committal today, but such is the life of the handicapper sometimes with the lines.
By the way, I think I'm going to take the over on Houston. I just think on offensive standpoint, the pitching is certainly suspect, but the pitching in this division is brutal anywaes.
Yeah.
So
that's
I think they get to about 89, 90 wins.
And you know what? We left out one thing. They've adopted, whether or not it's valid, whether or not you think it's ridiculous or not, they've adopted a us against the world kind of thing in Houston.
Totally.
And
yes.
again, it's one of those intangibles. There isn't a column for it in Fangraphs, but it matters and
Yeah.
it works.
Mhm.
And they're a really good team. They're a good team. They're a hard team to bet against. They're a tough team. They play it hard. They're just a very tough team. They're especially tough at home. So they're hard to go against. That's why it's tough to short a good team like that, and probably why I'm non-committal. I want to like Oakland. Man, I wish they went and got a pitcher. It's not their style to do that. But with the addition of, and I know it seems, I hope it's not knee jerk, that Lewis Dalton Jeffries has had some shine, but he's looked very sharp, and sharp to the extent that the organization's pushing him forward and giving him a rotation spot. So that's not just me saying, like, oh, I saw it on the MLB Network and he threw a GIF, a GIFable pitch or whatever. The org believes in him and they're pushing him forward. So when I see that always gets the antennas kind of peaked up. And if he is let's just say above average, above replacement level starter, which again, Oakland is on the list of those. They don't, it's a different factory. They don't put out the aces the way Cleveland creates aces, but like Oakland, they make plenty of these kind of typical, but very good pitchers, and if their injured guys have a healthy season, I'm referring to now Luzardo and Puck. So the A's have a lot of different ways that it can happen. So I could see going over on the A's. And it's possible that both the A's and the Astros are 89 win teams. It kind of feels that way in a way.
Yeah, like one of those pitchers that you are talking about, I think could be Mike Fiers. Like not this year, but Mike Fiers everywhere had been a guy, even still in Oakland, had been a guy that gave up a lot of bombs, didn't strike anybody out. You couldn't really rely on in fantasy, but at times with the A's, this guy looked unbelievable. I know the ballpark helped him out. I think there was a stretch off the top of my head from just writing DFS articles every single day over the past couple of years that Mike Fiers went through like a 10 to 12 game stretch where it was like 2 runs or fewer and giving like 6 or 7 innings. It's like, wait, what is happening? But then Mike Fiers away from Oakland, and it's like, okay, well, now he's those fly balls are turning into home runs and doubles off the wall and whatnot. But yeah, Oakland's a weird team, man. It's tough. Last year, the win total, obviously the shortened season, I didn't think they weren't getting that much respect. This year, I feel like Vegas is giving it to them a little bit, taking a couple wins off the Astros and putting a couple more here towards Oakland. So this is one I'm a little uneasy about as we go to the Angels, 83.5, minus 118 over, minus 106 under. Can we get Mike Trout into the playoffs again, please? Let's go. One playoff season from Trout. They were bounced early in 3 games against the Royals. They had one of the better offenses in baseball that year, and they got something from the rotation, which is not something they've had recently from the rotation. Dylan Bundy had a strong season last year. Andrew Haney, they bring in Alex Cobb. Shohei Ohtani is definitely the key to this team's success. There's no question. Last year, he wasn't able to pitch from Tommy John. This year, he's been hitting triple digits on the gun. He's looking nice. He's still giving up some bombs and walking some guys, but there's been some encouraging signs through spring. Oh, and by the way, he's absolutely raking. So the lineup is basically the same. They lose Andrelton Simmons, we already talked about, who's a great defender, for another great defender in Jose Iglesias, who's made a handful of just highlight reel plays already throughout spring.
Great.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, this lineup, when they're healthy, I mean, they're going to score runs. I mean, Upton's near the end of his career. Pujols, this is going to be his final year. They're going to score some runs. The biggest question is pitching in the bullpen. They bring in Jose Iglesias. This has always just been at best a 500 team. I usually take the under, every time I see here Angels. I think, again, 84 wins, I'd be shocked. I really would be. I think they're more of an 80-win team. I'm going to lean with the under, but maybe you can talk me into them.
No, it's hard for me, but I want to, and it's because of the organizational approach, actually. I feel like they're heading into the uncertain season being very open about throwing volume at the uncertainty. And again, talking downrange with teams that are going to adjust and add or build, I think the Angels very much are trying to win right now.
Yes.
And they're also kind of, I don't know if they're doing it the right way, but I'm kind of a frugal guy. I can be known as a bit of a cheapskate, right? Sometimes penny saves or penny earned. I think if they need something, they're going to try at least to fill the hole. So I don't want to be shorting teams. Man, I'm having a hard time shorting a healthy Ohtani right now, just in general, because you're talking about. It's funny. He's not the trick piece that you might think he were. Listening to a podcast or having people describe him. This guy, he kind of hits and he kind of pitches. No, he's like a legit, like top 25 hitter when this guy's in the box, man. I worry about the pitching. I think he's effective and very good. I worry about the health thing. I think the way this guy hits and the way he can run, not that he needs to be stealing bases, but I think he needs to be an offensive player. He could be like a 900 OPS guy on a team that needs one of those,
right.
And gosh, I don't know. You shouldn't need him to get outs with his arm if he could do that. We don't ask any other 900 OPS guys. Find a 500 OPS guy to get outs. You know what I mean? But I guess that's another story. The point being, Trout, Rendon, and Ohtani, are 3 of those top 25 hitters, and they're all right after each other. It's a dangerous lineup. They oftentimes get kind of brushed past. I think people think of, it was like Fletcher, and then they were rolling out just guys.
Fletcher's great, by the way.
Yeah, he's a better real life guy than maybe fantasy. Or
sure, fantasy he's nothing. He may be an on base guy, but he's the best. I honestly know baseball over the past.
I wouldn't have him lead off because to me, when you have those 3 guys, those plate appearances are way too precious, and even if it means 13 at the end of the year, I want 13 more Rendon, Trout, or Ohtani, plate appearances. Rendon could lead off. They're so good. But the OBPs are so high, and they make pitchers work. And there's what's better than that than having a team come out and make the pitcher throw 20-something pitches in the first inning. You feel like that's a victory in itself.
Sure, yeah.
So I could see the pathway to the Angels going over, but I'm not quite there yet. I like the method, Chris, but I don't like the actual execution. Like, I don't really like the guys that they went and got. I think Bundy is pretty much a 1. I think he's a low end 1, but I've never really liked Heaney. To me, Cobb is, now it's a double reach.
Yeah,
spread.
Cobb's nothing. Quintana's having a great spring, but he's nothing.
Right. And then Canning, who's coming off the injury.
Yeah.
And now we went from, like I said, I like the idea of volume. They're open about 6 starters, but in reality, those 6 starters feels like 3.5 or 4. So it looks like they're going to have the same problem a lot of other people are going to have. And then those kind of auxiliary names are banged up now. Pena and Barria, Felix Pena, Jaime Barria, are both impactful on a permanent basis and could get you outs, but I think both of them are on the shelf right now. So the Angels, though they've made additions, I'm skeptical of the win total. I'm just not ready to go over yet. Because how about this? The Angels, I think let's let them come out and lose a few games, and maybe the line will shift. Because I'm not sure I'm buying this. I think this might be inflated. I'm just not ready to commit because I think they might bring in a pitcher, and one big pitcher
could be the difference.
That's why it would tip the scales.
That's why I think Ohtani, like everything you said makes sense about Ohtani, and he should be hitting. And my goodness, he's a guy that if you give him 500 plate appearances, 30 home runs, he'll steal 10 bags, 70. Like he'll do so much for you. But I really do feel like they need this guy to be able to.
He's good too. It's
a start once a week, or a strong outing every couple weeks, just something to help this rotation out a little bit, because you're right. This is the biggest need of this team. It has been for years. Last year, one of the worst bullpens in all of baseball. It's been like that for a long, long time. Yeah. I mean, you go all the way back to when they won the World Series. It's been an issue for a long time. I wonder if they would trade like a Joe Adell or a Brandon Marsh for.
Oh, you mentioned the names I meant to get to. A lot of people know Adell, and I don't think they know Marsh. Man, he's my kind of guy. I don't have to even meet him in person.
Like, I want to see him play and not Dexter Fowler. Like, that could happen maybe in July.
Yeah, I get Fowler feels like a stopgap to me.
Yeah.
And maybe they're fooling around with service stuff. Marsh plays like a man with his hair on fire. I love him. He looks like he looks like Jason Worth out there right now too.
He does, yeah.
I love the guys doing the the big beard running through walls. Those are my kind of guys, man.
Yeah, in Diamond Dynasty MLB The Show for anyone who plays out there. I got his like I don't know, is his rookie card or whatever. And he's got the flow, man. It does look like Worth/Harper. Very
Oh, he's got
aggressive
it
running
going.
the bases.
But
Yeah,
he's a stud, and I've spoken to some pretty sharp prospect people. You mentioned Eric Ross before.
yeah,
Ralph Lifshit's another one, two of the
yeah.
sharpest guys there are, who
Hmm.
said Marsh might be like the guy to have. Now, I know we're not really doing dynasty, but this plays into the betting markets because we're talking about a 6-month bet, right? We're not betting on them tomorrow. We're
Yeah,
betting on them in September. You may see one, you see either or both by then. Adding two pieces, and let's say, all Adele has to do is kind of get it together, and
yeah,
he's going to take off. I don't know if there's
sure.
any doubt with that.
No,
Whether or not it happens is another story. Marsh looks like he might be ready now. So
yeah.
like, they could be an offensive powerhouse.
I mean, you just hope that. I mean, Trout is only 29 on time, and Rendon is 30. But it looks like maybe next year we're seeing Upton out of the lineup, Pujols out of the lineup, and maybe those kids
Yeah.
in the lineup. And then we're
I
talking
can't believe they're even starting him right now.
you're able to platoon him with Walsh a little bit, but yeah, I wanted to. I get the Fletcher thing. This is not trying to be a homer, but I've seen every Angels game the last 15 years. I really like Fletcher atop the order, man. He's a
Yeah,
contact guy.
okay.
He puts in at bats. He can give you those 8 to 9 pitch at bats, which really does wear down pitchers. He does a lot of the little things. He's got a fantastic eye. I think #1 contact rate in baseball over the last 2 years.
Well,
Doesn't
see,
really strike out and
you
gets
brought
on
the
base.
goods. You brought the smoke because
Yeah.
you're right. If the two things a player would absolutely need to check the box to back that up, you got, because the OBP is there and the in zone contact rate is there. For me, it's just the plate appearances. I can't get past substituting him. I think you're
Yeah.
right. He's on base.
He's not a fantasy guy. He's
Right.
not. Yeah.
But if he let off, but let's say we were to get him the 653 plate appearances he had in 2019, but leading off.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason he doesn't score 112 runs or so.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at the swinging strike percentage, 3, contact rate 92%. Yeah, he's a guy that he puts in good at bats, man. I think he's pretty underrated.
He
But
might be a sneaky runs leader.
yeah, well, last year I wrote him up at the Athletic, and I drafted him everywhere in the last round. And sometimes I went into my drafts doing the same thing, and it's like, oh wow, okay, other people are on him again this year, so I can't get him as early as I'd like to. But he is a sneaky little on base guy, and just for some runs, I think he's got like 4 positions too. I mean, second, short,
fantasy
third,
team.
outfield, so he'll help you out in those leagues. All right, these last 2 teams talking a lot about the Angels. It's my bad. Seattle and Texas. Let's group them together here.
All right.
Seattle 72.5, Texas 66.5. Anything here that stands out for you?
Okay. I'm sorry. Say the Texas again is what? It's not listed.
6.5. And Jays fans will be happy to hear that Rougned Odor was just straight up released from this team, I believe. Yeah.
I'm gonna fade the bottom feeder again. You can't
Yeah.
go on the Rangers because they're really that bad.
They are brutal. I mean,
They're
I think they're going to
really
be
bad. It's
there with the
really,
Pirates. It's the worst team in the league.
you know what's funny? I mentioned that on Twitter, and I actually got quite a bit of blowback, so I backed off it. I was wondering if anyone thought they might be as bad or worse than the Pirates. And I guess the Pirates are just coming off as being so bad that no one was trying to hear that.
Fair. This Texas rotation is awful, and their lineup, I don't like any of their pieces really. Like Joey Gallo can hit home runs, whatever.
Maybe had I said in just the American League, it's probably the Rangers have nothing. I think Dane Dunning is their best pitcher. They have him in the 5 spot.
The 5 spot, yeah.
I actually, on a whim and in some best ball stuff and in some underdog stuff, I will be cheering on my boy Joey Gallo.
Sure.
If Joey Gallo goes off, you may see me sweep the underdog tournaments this year because he's going really late and he's the kind of guy that plays into that, right? He's on base, high OPS. He could do all those things. And if he's showing, he's trying to trick us again with this spring trading that he's going to be like like an actual power hitter that makes contact, where he would be, he'd be an MVP kind of guy.
He would be. Yeah.
If he straightened up the discipline and got the contact in rate. So he's a home run kind of guy. If I were going to put any money on Texas at all, it would be on Gallo for home runs, right? He could be part of a productive ticket, I think, for sure. Over under, I don't want to touch the Rangers. I don't like to short the bottom feeders, but I do understand it. So there's a chance this is the 100-win team. Chris and I spoke last time about drawing that line of demarcation where most teams generally stay within those 60 to 100 to 160 spectrum, that kind of range. So I don't look for that. Seattle, I'm way over. I love Seattle this year for what it is. They are a victim of the bad team bias. The public loves to smear the Mariners. You mentioned team totals earlier. The Mariners frequently come in at 2.5, even though they score.
Yeah.
And they were killing lefties and they score, but the pitching was bad, so they'd be an underdog and the team total would be low. It's there, what I'm getting at, people listening to me, Chris and I hope is you're seeing it's not always as blunt as, right, here we are talking about over-unders, but most of the bets are not those, because you start with that process and see where it takes you and look for inefficiencies, or, where is it efficient, where is it inefficient. And I think Seattle is one of those spots, because I think they pitch now. So it's like, look out. Seattle has a couple of pitchers, and they haven't had a couple of pitchers, and they're sitting on a couple of
unbelievable
crown
prospects.
Jewels right now, right?
Yeah.
So Jared Kelenic is a legit A1 prospect, right? Legit A1 prospect. All the goodies. And from what I understand, I had Eric Cross on Cork Stats, and he was talking up. Oh man, the names escape me. They have a pitcher. They have a pitcher or two. Logan Gilbert is one, and I think there's another one. I think I might have been Newsom or Duggar, but I know for a fact Logan Gilbert was someone he was talking up that we could see.
Yeah, he brought him up yesterday. We did the Red Sox preview, and on the way out, I asked him for an overall prospect, and he brought up Gilbert, and he said he expect to see him in a couple months.
Okay, so where the Mariners, without having to give up anything, are going to add like major league ready, legit frontline pieces. Okay, this is not something they generally have, which is why the public is always kind of bashing them. But listen, Mitch Haniger is healthy right now. Dylan Moore made significant tangible changes. Kyle Lewis was a rookie of the year. He looks, he's a player. He might be a little banged up, but again, we are talking about months. He's a young guy, and I think he's fine. I don't think he's serious. Kyle Seager is like a lunchbox guy. And so you kind of go down. Ty France is one of my favorite buy low guys in fantasy. Yeah. And Taylor Trammell, I think it is not Trammell. I think it's Trammell has been playing, and he's been very productive that he played himself into a spot. Evan White, they liked him so much, they signed him to the deal early to not let him get away. He's very good defensively, so he'll be on the field. He has to clean up a couple things with his offense, but they're no longer relying on him to hit third. He doesn't have to carry the team. He's going to hit eighth. To me, that's where those guys get the situation to succeed, right? He doesn't have the pressure now. And even somebody like Crawford, who is pretty effective out of the one hole, is going to have that what do you call it? Kind of prototypical circular 9 spot. That like the rotational kind of cyclical 9 spot. There's a reality here. Without those two guys, they're pretty good. Newsflash, James Paxton looks awesome.
He looks great.
I don't know what's going to get hurt. Yeah. I love that. So what? Enjoy the 2 games. It doesn't work that way.
I know.
That's not how it works, okay? Right now, he's healthy. Right now, the velo is there, and right now he looks filthy. So right now, James Paxton is a top 30 pitcher. You could take all of your like teeth sucking and just get on the bus with that. I don't understand where that comes from. He's healthy. He's got the filth right now. This guy on a permanent basis, dude, we're going back his entire career. Does he even have a 4 ERA? This guy's awesome. He's always awesome, and he's been kind of pegged for not being reliable. But I think he gave us 28 and 29 starts respectively in 2018 and 2019. So
yes,
last I checked, those are full compliments. So we missed 2020. A lot of guys missed 2020. He looks great. Get Paxton. Bet Paxton early. Get Paxton on your fantasy squad.
I got him on a lot of teams because he's been not free, but he's not getting drafted as a top 30 pitcher. People are very afraid of him, and if he gives me 130 innings, it's going to be 130 really good innings.
Really good for you.
You're right. Really good in Seattle before.
I've always liked Sheffield. He's a Yankee farmhand that, of course, they don't know what to do anything with, so they suppressed him and then gave away for less than he was worth. That's like the motto. That's like the modus operandi down there. So Sheffield has a career arc that is yet to be determined. He's been very good. We saw a pitch mix, and he's looking very strong. Yusei Kikuchi is an industry darling. The velo is there. The mix is there. He looks kind of sharp. And remember, he was pegged by very smart people to be a 2 or a 3, right? So we're painting a picture of a Seattle Mariner rotation without Gilbert that's stuffed with 2s and 3s. The same to be said for Mr. Boring Marco Gonzalez, who, like
Yeah.
Keigel, is probably the better version. But
Yes.
who could you hang your hat on for 6 innings if not Marco? If anything, he's one of the most likely to give you 7, which has become kind of rare. So the Mariners are just criminally undervalued. Criminally undervalued. Expect me to be betting the team totals. I'll be betting the F5s. I'll be betting the over. I want all of the Seattle. And it's unfortunate because I think they're the big loser, Chris, with the reversion to the playoff bracket, the old restricted playoff bracket. I think they would have snuck in. And then you get one of those like exciting young chemistry things that could happen and have them take off, which would be excellent. Because I love when that happens. I love when the younger, lesser money squads to make runs to the big guys, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the
And
parity of the game. Good.
they got Julio Rodriguez, who's another top prospect.
Oh, superstar in the making.
See him this year. Was another guy that they just have in their system right now. This division is interesting. I kind of feel the over on Houston, the under on LA, the under on Texas, and the over on Seattle. I'm kind of feeling a lot from this division. Kind of to recap here. Royals feeling the over, the 73.5, the over in Cleveland's 81.5, the under on Minnesota 88.5, the under on the Red Sox 80.5. I don't know. I think we're going to see a couple more moves from that team. And then 85.5 on the Rays. Let's wrap up here with some awards, shall we? AL Cy Young, Garrett Cole, 350 to 1. Or plus 350, Shane Bieber plus 400, Lucas Giolito, we mentioned him earlier, plus 450, and then a bit of a gap here. We got Glasnow 950, Hyunjin Ryu 13 to 1, Barrios 17 to 1, Lance Lynn 17 to 1. Kenta Maeda had a really good season last year. He is 17 to 1 as well. Anything jump out at you? And as you did yesterday, you had some long shots. You got any long shots for us here?
I was mentioned yesterday, this is the situation to do it because I had mentioned marquee names, and I don't think you need to be a marquee name to win the Cy Young. However, I just happen to like them better in the National League. Oh. Are there any guys that I think could do it? I think you need a full year. So, listen, somebody like he has had a very weak spring, but, Plesac at 40 to 1. Cleveland lets their guys go. He's part of the rotation to start the year. And a part of them letting them go is not only on a macro, but also on a micro, meaning they throw over 100 pitches. They tend to go 6 innings or more. So the table is set for Plesac, at least from an opportunity standpoint, I think, to get it done. Where there are a lot of guys in this list that I don't think can get it done. I think, man,
Giolito?
40 to 1 is a long shot for a reason. I think Bundy should be better than a 40 to 1. So maybe you're kind of pairing these guys, right? Maybe it's a few bucks on Bundy and a few bucks on Plesac. I'm kind of moving up, and then I think you got to get to where it's Maeda, and then it's Giolito. It's just going to be hard to profit because the three-headed monster at the top, right? That Bieber, Cole, Giolito, all near the same odds, plus 350, plus 450, makes it very difficult to diversify and profit. So that's normally my strategy. I think I'd rather risk less, worry less, try a cluster of long shots for a bigger pay. And if the chalk takes it, let the chalk take it. Because remember, you could bet one of these guys and one injury and he's done.
Yeah, for sure. I like Giolito a little bit there, the value. It's kind of my favorite. The Bundy call is interesting. Over to AL MVP, Trout plus 225, 3-time AL MVP. Like unbelievable. His worst showing last season in the voting was 5th. So it's been pretty crazy to start his career. Alex Bregman, 12 to 1, Judge 12 to 1, Ramirez 12 to 1, Chapman 15 to 1, Anthony Rendon 51, Shohei Ohtani, who I bet 6 weeks ago at 50 to 1 is now 20 to 1.
Wow.
Jose Abreu 25 to 1, Tim Anderson 25 to 1, Vlad Guerrero Jr. 25 to 1 here as well. I don't want to say it's as simple as Trout, but I mean, it's tough to get behind those odds. I think a lot would have to go wrong for him not to be in the conversation again this season. But what stands out to you here?
Yeah, it'd be the same idea. 2 plus 225 is way too much to ask for somebody to win the MVP. I mean, it's like a lifetime achievement, and you're at 225. Just they don't want you to bet it. Don't bet it. Don't even walk into that.
Mhm.
But the long shot odds, again, probably afford you a nice place for a cluster. I want to mention the marquee again. To win the Cy Young, you don't need to be one. I think to win the MVP, I think you need some marquee
Totally.
ability. So you nailed Otani already. I still think there's some love to be had at 20-1. You crushed 51. Good for you.
That's in our FTM bet tracker.
That's CLV, baby. No matter what, that's a quantifiable CLV. But what I'm getting at is Otani can get it because of the subjective nature of the award itself, meaning by pitching and hitting and being good at both. With the international appeal, and he's in a good market, the recipe is there. So MVP is more than just stats. Remember, MVP does not mean the best stat line. It's not that simple. Otani checks the boxes that can get it done for you at 20-1. The younger guys that I think can really get it, I don't think the skills are there yet. So in a year or two, we're going to want our money on Vlad Guerrero Jr. We're going to want our money on Luis Robert. They're not there yet, I don't think.
No.
If Vlad how about this way? Vlad is the type who's one or two pieces away from being that guy. The second you see it happen, then I think you could put some money on it. If this guy comes out and he's lifting the ball and hits a couple early home runs, the line is not going to move much for the MVP. You can probably hit it then. I wouldn't do it prematurely because you need to see it first. Then there's only a handful of guys that check all those boxes. I mean, I don't even know who you could. I think Gleyber Torres is maybe on that short list.
Yeah.
I think Yohan Moncada is on that short list. I'm trying to. It's personality, it's position, it's location, and youth and stats. It's for me, my MVP formula is, I guess, it's a bit unorthodox when I think about how statistically driven a lot of my other stuff is. But yeah, I'm not. I would just build a cluster of guys I think could do it. I think Ramirez has a path to an MVP, and I think Chapman, I think, even has a path to an MVP for the A's. So you're kind of looking at those World Series teams. You mentioned it yesterday. You can win it without it, but I think it helps to be on a winning team.
It does, yeah. I mean, Trout has done it, Stan's done it, and A-Rod. We mentioned those guys that have done it. We talked about Soto, not necessarily the Nationals having to make the postseason for him to be able to get it. The thing with Otani is, if he can put together that season that a lot of people have expected, and expectations certainly were high when he came in, and right off the get-go, he was striking out guys, he was hitting home runs. It was very new and fresh. We didn't know. He's like, we hadn't done this since Babe Ruth. I mean, crazy things, right? If he can put together a season where he hits 25 home runs, scores and drives in 65 plus, steals 10 bags, hits 270 on top of 70 plus K, a sub 4 ERA in 6 or 7 wins. Are you kidding me? And this guy's not an MVP? Like, who's doing that stuff? Nobody. And on top of that, if the Angels find a way to get into the postseason, having not gotten in X amount of years, it's not because Mike Trout was awesome, because Mike Trout has been awesome and they haven't been able to get in. It's because Otani was able to give them a little bit something more offensively, and what they have been lacking over the years is pitching. So I think that's going to continue to drop to like 15-1 if he gets off to a hot start and he's pitching and he's not hurt. It's going to be, I think, 15-1 for sure. I've watched it go from 50 6 weeks ago, like I said, to 40 to 30. 40 at the start of spring, 30 here to the middle part of spring, and now, as of today, 2 days away from opening day at 20-1. So I still think there's decent value there to be had. John, fantastic stuff as always, man. Very, very insightful. I encourage everybody to check out John on Twitter at MLB Moving Average. And also our FTN Fantasy Draft Kit is absolutely just lit with all kinds of great information. And listen, we have a deal going on right now. You buy FTN Fantasy, the NFL, you're going to get baseball for free. You're going to get stuff all year long from John, from Matty Wood, from myself, waiver wire articles, 2 starts, buy low, sell highs, all kinds of great stuff, and the betting package over at ftnbets.com. John will have all kinds of betting stuff in there as well. And check out his podcast, Cork Stats. Great stuff, man. Looking forward to the season. Thanks, bud.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Encourage everybody to continue to just follow the Mayo Media Network. If you're subscribed, you're going to see John here on this network and all the videos. Of course, Gary and Thorne will be here talking baseball with you throughout the season. So Mayo's got you covered. Lots of great minds here on the Mayo Media Network. Thanks for taking the time to hang out to Fantasy Baseball Picks and Bets presented by Prize Picks. Again, leave something in the YouTube section, your favorite pick, and we'll circle back before opening day if you have any questions. Hope you enjoyed. We'll talk soon. Cheers.